welcome back to our sessions this afternoon. We have some exciting presentations and teaching this afternoon. And without any further ado, Gary Dollar, take it away to talk to us about annual plans and outdoor scouting.
Man, huh? So excited to be with you today and talk about the annual plan. What better spot than to come out here in the woods to be able to do this? And you know, when most people look at such beautiful trees that are there, that's all I see is bolo ties. So bear with me. All right. As the Boy Scouts of America's mission statement states, scouting exists to prepare young people to make ethical and moral choices over their lifetime by instilling in them the values of the Scout Oath and the Scout Law. There isn't anywhere in the mission statement about meetings or outings or other activities. However, it would be impossible to achieve our mission without dynamic, relevant programming, which also requires effective program planning. I just want to welcome you, and I know that your lunch was short, but it was wonderful to have this morning's sessions. There was so much that we learned. I would like to invite you right now to open your books or your notebooks to fit to page 19, I think, is where the annual program planning is. Sorry for the stumble there. And also, Mike, would you mind please queuing up right now the video? And oh, yes. Nice. Ooh, yeah. Oh. Extra parts. I don't think so. Wasn't that a fun video? How many times have we developed a program and helped the boys and the adults in trying to see the vision that this gentleman saw, just to find every once in a while there's a few pieces left out and there's things start to unravel a little bit, and we just have to take our program and our plan and readjust so that we have a good experience. In scouting, planning, I believe, is a two-phase process. One is long-term planning results in an annual calendar and a set of goals that the troop has made for the year. And then there's short-term planning, which yields detailed plans for 1 month or a quarter. It even goes down into the meetings for each troop night. So how do you start in your program? And when you start doing your planning, I often sit with the boys and the adult leaders, and the first question is asked is, so what do you want to do? And the boys will always say, well, I don't know, what do you want to do? And then we go around the room, and the next question is, well, what did we do last year? And these begin to be somewhat meetings of trying to find and to recreate, when in reality, everything is already set if we'll just use the resources available. If we take a look at, and first, what are the obstacles that we find when we're doing our planning? Especially as now with our new units and the traditions that we've had in the past, one of the things that you might find is that resources might be a little bit harder to find because we had so much available to us for that 107 year. So are we on?
Yes, we hear you and see you, Gary. Keep going.
Okay, great. Laura's saying, well, I can't see you. All right. The next one, that when we take a look after resources, how about the ideas? Talked about that, you know, what do we want to do? What do the boys want to do? How critical is the materials that we use as far as where we can find those ideas? How about overscheduling of youth and leaders? So I think of some of the sessions that we've had this morning, and we've talked about these resources and the schedules that we've got. You know, sometimes we get so busy, but we realize that this is the program of our youth, and so we will find the time and the resources. When I think of the important things that we need when we're scheduling is dates and the school activities, the sports, what are they doing? Drama, music, dance, the list goes on and on. How about one of the obstacles that we might find that Wayne and Roma talked about earlier is funds. Where in the past we've had the church that just did so much for us that a lot of this was just handled through the budget. Now we've got to think about, you know, okay, if we want to do something, we want to go to a camp, we want to have an activity that's going to require more funding and resources, we've got to plan that into our annual planning. But the last thing that I want to take some time to talk about is the youth buy-in. Now, this, I think, is probably one of the most important things when you consider that this is their program. They need to be the ones stepping forward. They need to be the ones that are involved in every aspect of this. I think Charles mentioned that earlier today also, is that we need to do all we can to help them to grow. And the best way to do it is to just stand behind them and support them and train them on the side to how to conduct the meeting and how to set this plan and to move it forward. So in reality, they need to be the ones leading the charge. Now, we can take a look at the resources that are there and the annual plan. Again, it's important that this be an organized thing. Long-term planning happens, but it happens at an annual planning conference. And typically, this is held either late in the spring or early in the summer, or even in the fall sometimes. As soon as you can possibly get all the school calendars, the community calendars, especially those that the boys may want to be a part of, and of those programs. And a few programming suggestions are to make sure that you spend time with the boys so that they can develop that planning meeting and then conduct the meeting where they can actually set and become that buy-in part. So I would start as a leader to help them to gather some of the information needed: key school dates, holidays, homecomings, news, community involvement, participating in dates so that we avoid some of those. Personal dates such as possibly family vacations, or when the long-term camps are open up and when they're available. Data collected from the Troop Resource Survey, I think that that's a critical thing to be able to find out where the interests are. District and council events, national jamborees or film-on activities that you might want to participate in, a big hike. Last year's annual plan might be helpful to have there with you. Unit priorities and their goals. Advancement records for each troop member so that you help them to build a calendar that helps to fulfill their advancement opportunities. Now, discussing this plan, again, I cannot reemphasize enough how important it is to have the youth leaders lead out, explaining to them the need that it is that they come forward in producing this information and be the lead in this process. Share draft outlines so that they're aware of how to conduct this annual program plan meeting conference. And ask the youth for their input and make them totally a part of this. So if we can go ahead and take a look at our annual plan, where do you find the resources in which to do this? Now, I remember years ago at a Philmont course that Charles Dahlquist once said one of the greatest travesties that we have is, as leaders, is understanding that the materials are here and we need to take the cellophane off, which means that often those materials are there and they're available to us. We just need to be able to take a look at where they are and become familiar with them. So if I could show you a program plan that would be absolutely incredible, that would not only help to answer the questions of these resources, ideas, and others, and funding and all of that, would you use those resources? Would you take the cellophane off? Okay, those resources are available to us. You can go to scouting.org/programs/Boy Scouts of Planning, do the same thing with venturing. But what I'd like to have you do for a second is to take a minute and open up your smartphones. We're going to make this interactive here. And I want you to type in to your smartphone search troop or activity plan, program planning features troop for troop or cruise. So program features for troops and crews. And what you'll see is that you will see these resources available. I'll get my iPad. If you'll take a look at what you'll find there, you'll see a lot of different websites that are available in that you're looking at on your screen. And each is a link to the programs. And what they're going to be linking to are these 3 manuals that are available here. This is a great manual that was produced by a team of wonderful scouters. I believe it was led by a gentleman by the name of Jim Virgin. And they built these resources to be able to be used so that it will make it much easier for each of us to be able to come up with the ideas. Now, can you imagine if you'll open, go down, I think it's number 4 on your screen, you'll see a resource that talks about, let me open mine with you. You'll see a resource that says program planning. I think it is number 4, inside program features for troops, teams, and crews. If you'll push that one and follow with me, this Brian on Scouting was the one that developed this. If you'll scroll down, you'll come down to these features that are available in books volumes 1, 2, and 3. Now I want you to look at those and be excited about what's there. Now in these books, can you imagine to have a resource that has 48 topics that are available that are all planned out? Everything is planned out, not even, or as well planned out that even your troop nights are planned out. That's all you've got to do is slide in people's names and just move forward. So that means that in these manuals, you have 240 plus weeks pre-planned troop nights. Man, what an exciting, stress-free book. So if you take a look and you go into, go out of that page that you're in and go to the one, I think it's the one just below it on your screen that says Bsa Program Features in 2019. It should, oops, that's not the right one. It actually brings up the manual, volume 2. So I guess it says Program Features for Troops, Teams, and Crews. It's down 2 more. And when you open that, what it will do is, this is the old manual. They've actually put volume 2 on there. Take a look at some of these activities. Camping in volume 1, climbing, rappelling, communicating, cycling, first aid, games, geocaching, hiking, outdoor ethics, paddle sports, pioneering, rifle shooting, safety, science, snowboarding, and skiing, spectacular sports. I think it's just amazing of what they've done to be able to be concise and put these all together, and the time spent to not only put them in the manual and all the resources that you might need and to lay them out by week, but look what else they've done. In the key, it lists down just a little bit below those 3 volumes. You'll see in green, it says everything that has a green square to the left of the program feature are for outdoor features. And then the next color is sports features, and then health and safety program features, and then citizenship and personal development. All of these things that are just there and available. STEM program features, art and hobbies, and other things like that. So as you're preparing, you can say, all right, young men, here's these books for you to prepare in advance for our annual program plan. I want you to open these books up and start looking at some of these things that you would like to do this next year. Or you can do it right there in the meeting, where they would be able to just say, oh man, that music one sounds great, or how about let's do some fishing? Well, what is multimedia in volume 3? Oh, I love doing shotgun shooting. Let's take a look at volume 3 in shotgun shooting on page 43. So all these resources are available. We just need to take the cellophane off and where to find them. And it's very easy with the search engines today in which to do that. Now, I might mention that also on the websites that I mentioned to you, the Boy Scout Forward program websites, you will also find on there manuals that we developed years ago that were the predecessors to these manuals. And these manuals are still available. See if this looks familiar. There's the Varsity Team Program Feature, Volume 1, Volume 2, and Volume 3. So some of the programs that are in here, many of them are also now in these new programs. The thing that I really, really love in these new manuals, that they have done a wonderful job, is that in the manuals, they actually build it to the level of the young men in your troop. So in the program, they actually will show you what is good in your program that's adaptable to the younger boys. And then it goes into those that are skilled and then those that are advanced, so that you've got all of these. Now they break out in the manuals to where in a regular troop, you've got young scout patrol, then you've got a medium age patrol, and then you've got your venturing patrol. In your groups, everybody has to kind of decide how they're going to do that. I know in our home troop right now, Troop 12 here in Highland that we sponsored, we are having a patrol that's for the younger boys, and it's led by the younger boys. But those younger boys are still going to participate in the same activities and the same calendar as our venturing boys. So we have a patrol of young boys. We have our what we call our junior patrol and our senior patrol type thing, so that it helps them. And each patrol has a leader, and each patrol stands by itself, but yet as a part of the troop. But the calendar is the same for all of them. And these manuals just really, really help us to build those type of opportunities for these young men. Now, there are other resources that you can find on the websites with BSA, and a lot of things that will really help you in your planning. In the manual, it shows you in complete detail what you need to list down, how to do the planning, and what the time frames are that you'll need in which to do that, whether it's going to be for the annual and picking it, where we're going to go to camp, and then there's extra things there that are really great aids. Now, I want to take some time to develop why I feel like that this annual plan is critical in making sure that we have enthusiasm and tradition in our units. I grew up in Mesa, Arizona, and I had one of the greatest scoutmasters, I believe, that there ever was. His name was Lyle Hilton. He was just the epitome to me of what a scoutmaster was. And then my dad got moved from Mesa up to St. Anthony, Idaho, to Ricks College. And there I was 14 and a half, 15 years old, and had an incredible explorer advisor in Punk Hathaway, a little tiny guy, but boy, he knew how to get us guys excited. And I know that in my experience in scouting, the reason that I was there, besides the brotherhood, was I love to be in the outdoors. And I truly believe that a lot of our experiences, as Mark spoke earlier, a lot of our experiences in scouting as youth helps us to connect the dots, and that doing hard things in the outdoors gives us experiences that will enrich our lives and make us better men and better daughters and better citizens of this world. And the skills that we learn in scouting are like the values of scouting. They're timeless. So I remember that one of the things that that touched my heart greatly was F. Melvin Hammond was a leader in my community, and he always at the end of the day shared how we could connect the dots in our outdoor activities and in our planning. And with the time that I have left, I'm going to come down there and talk to you. But I want to tell you that those were some of the most memorable and meaningful experiences that I ever had, was how he changed my life and others by taking and connecting the dots. Nettie told you a story about President Monson, and in his office was that bridge, and the young scout that visited his office where he saw the statue of Baden-Powell and set Baden on the middle of that bridge, and how scouting can be a bridge. I learned those lessons early and thought, you know what, this can be good for not only in scouting, but in my family, raising my boys, and in my callings in the church. One of the first callings that I had was to be a a scout leader for, or a Sunday school teacher. I'm sorry. We're looking at my time to make sure that I'm doing okay. But being a scout leader or a Sunday school teacher for some 14, 15-year-old boys and girls in the Rancho Cordova First Ward in the Sacramento area. And one day I just kind of got fed up with this one young man. I think his mission in life was to disrupt my class. And I'm a patient person and I love the youth, but Tim just got on my nerves. He'd lean his chair against the back of the wall and just disrupt and make snide comments and stuff. And finally one Sunday, after, a lot of Sundays, I finally said, Tim, I can't take any more. Grab your chair. You're going outside of the door. And so I opened the door. He went out and he sat in the hall. And I said, you stay here. I'll visit with you later. And later we visited, and I think it was more of an apology on my side. I went home and told Laura about my experience, and I wept. I knew that I had not done what I was there to do, and that was to lift and inspire and strengthen this young man. So the next Sunday, the Spirit said, Gary, I've got something for you. So I went the next Sunday and I said, guys, y'all know where Folsom Lake is. I want to have a camp out. And because it's just, the way it is, I'm just going to take the guys, and girls will do something, later with Sister Dollar. But guys, come on. I knew that if I could get Tim where I had felt the Spirit earlier, maybe the Spirit would help to touch his heart. He was starting to make some decisions and going in the direction that his mom and dad, which we had conversations, I had conversations with him, that he was going. So we designed or, figured a place that we were going to go. It's absolutely gorgeous lake. We set up our camps when we got there, set up our tents. I love to Dutch oven cook, and I'm pretty good at it. Thus my size, but I'm pretty good at it. So we built our campfires, a great Dutch oven meal. Then it was time for the campfire program. We sang songs until probably 10:30, 11 at night. And then I just made sure that evening that Tim's sleeping bag was rolled out near mine. In fact, with all the boys there, and we actually did have another leader with us, even though back then there wasn't such a thing as two deep leadership. Wouldn't recommend it. Now that I've thought of it in the past, it's just probably one of those things that I should have done, was securing that third and fourth leader because I had 16 boys with me. But Tim's bag was right next to mine. We were looking up at the stars, and it was a starlit night. The Milky Way was brilliant and bright. What an incredible opportunity. These young men were in a very reflective mood, and they started asking me question after question. Now, I had just graduated from college, and this was my first job opportunity in Sacramento. And one of my favorite courses in college was astronomy. I loved it. So I learned a lot about it. And they started asking me questions about the way that everything was created, and time and space, and the difference between the brightness of one star and another, and which constellations we could see right there. And we just had a wonderful time, and we talked and talked. And one at a time, these boys started to doze off. And finally, at about midnight, there was just Tim and I still awake. And Tim rolled over on his bag in this reflectant mood and put his head on his hand like this and said, Brother Dollar, do you really believe that stuff you're teaching us in Sunday school? Do you really believe that there is a Jesus Christ and that he is my Savior? My heart soared. That evening, until almost 2 in the morning, Tim had an awakening to Christ. And I shared my testimony. And we talked through some of the issues that he had. Brothers and sisters, that couldn't have been done without the out of doors. This out of doors truly is an opportunity and a laboratory for the principles that we teach them as they build knots or in a classroom setting. It's completely different when we do that. Now, another experience that I had was that I was a scoutmaster. We went one summer to a place called Schofield Aquatics Camp, beautiful camp up in the on the way to Price, and it's just a gorgeous little camp. In the middle of the lake is an island, and part of the program is that you can schedule to use the canoes and go out one night with your boys and sleep out on the island. And so we did that for a Thursday evening. Thursday morning, as we were putting our stuff together and getting it, I thought to myself, you better take your fishing boat and put all the guys' gears in there just in case, you know, you get some bad weather. At least they'll sleep well. So we put all the food and all the gear into my little fishing boat. And then, of course, we got the boys to the canoes and the wind picked up and it started blowing. It was just little white caps. Then it started to drizzle a little bit and we were starting to leave this cove where the camp is into open water. And we had to go, it was about a mile from the cove out to the middle or to the island. Well, I observed that when the boys got into their canoes, the younger members of the troop did not like to be in the same canoes as the older boys. And the older boys, they wanted to be together. So as we hit that open water with these white caps and the rain starting to come down just a little bit, the wind picked up. Well, those younger scouts, they just set themselves straight forward, looking forward and paddling that canoe right towards the island. But the older scouts, they started to think, okay, so if the way the wind's blowing, if we'll paddle to the right and then come in and let the island break the wind, we should get there in pretty good time. And here's these little 12-year-olds just paddling away, and these older boys just coming around. Brothers and sisters, who do you guess got to the island first? And I'm observing this whole thing going back and forth. It was the younger scouts. They got there first, and they were there in plenty of time to put their canoes on the bank and to turn around and start pointing and jeering on and encouraging on those older boys that were taking, it took them an extra 20 minutes. And I thought, okay, do we let this slide or do we learn from this? So that evening in my Scoutmaster's Minute, I took the time to talk about setting goals. And sometimes the course that we take, we may have to, you know, have a few things thrown at us that might be in our face. But if we'll set our course and go direct, then we'll get there. We just have to be persistent. Now, can we go a different direction? Sure, but it may take us time. It may take us more effort, but it was a great opportunity to teach a lesson of life. I truly believe that the purpose of scouting, as mentioned in the goals of scouting, is to help the young men and the young women to make moral and ethical decisions. And what a better place to learn this than in the outdoors, and to take the time to, at the end of every activity, we call this reflections. And at the end of every activity, we should take the time in which to share that. Now, I remember that one of the things that Brother S. Delworth Young had mentioned at the end of his life that he regretted. He was a professional scouter. So he says, I regret I did more than 1,100 campfires and talked to probably thousands and thousands and thousands of youth. And my experience was I was a great storyteller and I shared these scary stories. I probably brought more blankets or sleeping bags over their head than I inspired their hearts. He says, my regret is that I did not help them to build a testimony of Christ. We have such a short time with these young men that let's make sure that our program and our planning and every activity helps us to move forward and to move them forward. One life and the one alone we have to live upon this earth. One life in which to do so much, to seek, to find, and to prove our worth. So many rosy peaks there are to climb and so many pathways to pursue. So waste no time in fruitless quests that get you nowhere in the end. The God of time is ours to squander or with care to use and spend. It's a folly to postpone good deeds. Tomorrow never comes, they say. Our future times belong to God, but our chance is now today. I hope and pray that today you'll take the opportunity to look at these manuals and to take notes of the conference that you've attended, that it will inspire you to move forward and to make a difference in the life of our youth. And I just want to say thank you for the time you've spent with me this day. Hope this is beneficial. Now back to you, Charles. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary, for that great presentation. I loved your story about your boys at night, and think of the opportunity that I've had being out on the trail with young men. I had a similar experience where I had about 7 young men who were about as rowdy as they could be. And yet, at the end of the day, after going down the river for a full day, they were just dead. I was so dead. I was so tired. I was half the way to Kolob. And all of a sudden, from about 7 bags down, one of these young men who was looking up at the stars asked a question about the plan of salvation. And for 30 minutes, we talked about some very important things in these young men's lives. And so it was a very good time.